The generation of the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, and the absolutely essential Wii was massive, not just because of the kinds of games, but because of the reach. Things like the Kinect or the Wii, say what you will about them, let video games reach an audience it never hit before. Now, before you click to close this video, don't worry, I know this is well-treaded territory for Games Thesis. Let me continue. Games got to more people, sure, but they lost something along the way. That certain something that resulted in games like Skyward Sword being made. That's a game that quite literally beats you over the head with what you need to do next. And the rewards for actually exploring just don't matter. There's no difficulty, no challenge, and I don't mean challenge along the lines of actually difficult obstacles. I mean, no need to assert yourself in the world. It just kind of holds your hand. Games of yore get a lot of credit because they didn't tell you anything. That was cool not because it made a game hard, again, not in any specific challenging sort of way, but because you actually had to work to figure it out. Today, in the generation we're in now, and toward the end of that all-important generation before, we've seen a shift, a return to form, so to speak, a turn in mystery in games. Let's talk about that. Imagine with me entering a dark castle that you've never been to before. Games tell us to be cautious of these surroundings, to beware. We don't know what the hell could happen. Maybe we'll creep forward and giant axes will be swinging from the ceiling, preventing any further passage, or an enemy of unknown horrors lies in each creeping shadow. This anxiety, this anticipation, that's something special. Much like horror games, there's something more exhilarating and engaging when you're controlling the character at large, and it's your agency that controls the narrative, rather than any unseen director. This is the magic of Dark Souls. When some describe it as a game that is the hardest thing you've ever played, I tend to get frustrated. I don't approach the Souls series from the perspective of difficulty, but from mystery. The Souls games aren't traditionally difficult. They have their own set of rules that they vehemently follow, and they often punish the player with challenge if they try and exploit these rules. The real tricky part is they don't tell you anything, just how to play. As a narrative journey, Dark Souls doesn't ever tell you where to go or what to do. Characters in the world give cryptic hints as to how it works, but there's never an arrow that'll hover over an NPC's head indicating he's your quest giver. You just go. 2 parts frustrating, 3 parts wonderment and exploration. That's the formula to not only Dark Souls, but its predecessor and its contemporaries. It's a tenet of the series, franchise, and the very concept that went into its initial creation. Get this, people go crazy over an adventure game with hardcore combat and almost no direction. Where have I heard that one before? It's true, we can't discuss the turn in mystery, as I call it, without its progenitor. The Legend of Zelda is a wondrous game, even as someone who isn't absolutely in love with it. In fact, I'd put it in the bottom 5 of my favorite Zeldas, only because I came to it at the wrong time. Regardless, I can very much appreciate what it does, and the world it manages to build with such limitations. There's no direction in Zelda, it's merely it's dangerous to go alone, and with that, the old man doesn't just give you a sword, but he gives you knowledge as well. Knowledge that, hey, I am going it alone, and this will be dangerous. That's what makes it awesome. It's cryptic, in the very same way that a lot of the more recent games I'll be talking about here are. From secret moblin caves to stronger swords and rings that would increase or reduce your damage respectively, The Legend of Zelda had it all. All these ideas would be the foundation for the franchise, even though it's very much become less of a focus. That is, until we see Breath of the Wild next March, but I'm sure we'll revisit that then. Zelda didn't tell you what you needed to do, so by that extent, nothing was a necessity. Nothing but adventure. We see in a lot of games that lack of direction kills momentum, kills interest. That's alright. Not every game needs to be for every player, but when we see a shift to strict direction within the same franchise, that can be a little frustrating. That's more specific to the Zelda franchise, and Egoraptor, aka Aaron Hansen, has a great video in regards to just that. You should watch it. I know it's trite to lean on the Dark Souls example, and as one of my absolute and all-time favorite games, I definitely lean on that example a lot. But in 2011, it brought about a new era of mysterious video games. Think of all the games that have followed in the oblique item description and directionless difficulty genre. So much so that it is a genre now. It's something that can encompass a whole series of independent and AAA games that still has ripples today. I mean, think about it's the Dark Souls of blank video games. Running up and striking any random wall in Dark Souls 1 or Dark Souls 3 could lead to a secret area, a secret room, or a hugely secret important quest. That sounds almost exactly like a seemingly random yet bombable wall in The Legend of Zelda, doesn't it? It's something that maybe we took for granted then, and take a little for granted now in a post-Souls world. If you never thought overbearing directionism was an issue with video games, you probably didn't play The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. Like Aaron says in Sequelitis, it's a game that bastardized the original concepts at play in The Legend of Zelda. It's a set path that not only forbids you from exploring it, it actively deters from it. Anything you need to find, I don't know, you can just douse for. Yeah, turn your damn sword into a dowsing rod and have fun, I guess. Ugh. You know, to think Skyward Sword came out in the same year as Dark Souls 1. Wii games were especially guilty of this trend, but it spread to everything. A definite symptom of that is a parody game like Far Cry Blood Dragon satirizing the tutorial of the era with maybe the most purposefully annoying tutorial screens of all time. It was a goddamn problem if we had to end up making jokes about it. Luckily, Dark Souls' influence wasn't the only game in play here. There are myriad examples past Dark Souls within another one of my all-time favorite genres, roguelikes. To be clear, I mean the modern roguelike genre, which is a genre to itself. It has a similar love for games of yore like Rogue, but it's also uniquely different in that there's far more variance. It's a genre where something like Spelunky and something like The Binding of Isaac can both exist comfortably. But what are roguelikes, to explain for those who don't actually know? Generally, they're games with some real strict opinions on death. The death penalty in a roguelike is the end. It's the end of your game, and so we must start fresh. It's awesome because it creates replayability, mostly because roguelikes are almost always completely randomly generated. It's intimidating because it requires a lot of time and patience to understand and to appreciate. From an action platformer like Spelunky to a twin-stick shooter like The Binding of Isaac or Enter the Gungeon, we've seen so many awesome and amazing roguelikes in the past 5 years that there really are too many to count or mention. But, well, there is one entirely other aspect of modern roguelikes that I think we all know about. It's just difficult to describe. They're all very, weird, very out there, enigmatic, mysterious. The games are just straight up off. There are weird and complicated mysteries in each of them that require specific timing, exploration, or hours of research to understand and execute on perfectly. Let me use an example of my favorite of the roguelikes, Spelunky. So Spelunky is a cool action platformer where you can just play through that game, jumping, whipping, straight stomping on fools, and have a great time. On the surface, we see a platforming game that is randomly generated, meaning we can just keep playing it and keep facing new challenges. But what if you dig a little deeper? Ask more questions. Well, there are 4 worlds in Spelunky, or so you thought! There are actually secret items laid throughout all 4 worlds, and by finding them, completing tasks associated with them, you can get to a secret 5th world. So there's a golden key in a locked chest somewhere in the mines, the 1st world. By finding the key, you can use it on the chest to get the Ujit Eye, which is a real thing, whilst in the mines. That's cool, it shows hidden objects in the walls around you, but it also reveals the location of a secret door hidden in the walls of the jungle, the 2nd world. If you can bomb your way to this secret door, you could go through it and get to the black market, which is a secret level full of cool stores and tons of items to buy. One store that is only in the black market sells a special item called the Ankh, also a real thing, which will revive you if you die. That's cool, right? Well, if you hold on to that Ankh until you get to a random level in the ice caves, the 3rd world, with a giant Hawaiian moai head in it, and then purposefully die on that level, you revive inside the moai head and receive an item called the Hedget. Stay with me here. It's about to get complicated. Now that you've got the Hedget, keep pushing to the 4th world, the Temple. On the 1st level of the Temple, you have to kill Anubis, who's a crazy, dangerous enemy who shoots magic circles at you that kill you instantly. If you can kill him, you can grab his scepter, which you then need to carry to the second level of the temple. There, a golden door will only unlock if you put the scepter in it and have the hedge it. Going through that door leads to the City of Gold, which is a super cool secret level with something called the Book of the Dead at its center. Which, just keep in mind, the whole level is gold. It's really cool. It took me a long time to get there. It's really cool. It's worth it. When you arrive, it says, "I finally made it." Now, when you take the Book of the Dead, you have to kill Anubis 2, who just shows up when you take it. It's fine. He's not as hard as Anubis 1. He kind of sucks. It's fine. But then you go to the next level, which is actually the final boss, Olmec. Now, with the Book of the Dead, it'll vibrate when you're standing above the secret door underneath Olmec's Mario 3-like brick. You see, so I say Mario 3 because Olmec has these bricks that you have to get him to stomp down and break. So he jumps at you, kind of like Bowser from the final level of Mario 3. He jumps and stomps down and he breaks the bricks, and eventually he'll fall through to the bottom, and there's lava underneath the bottom, and right above the lava is the door that I'm talking about that vibrates when you stand over with the Book of the Dead. Anyway, he'll crash down, and you have to let him crash down into the lava because if you fall, you get hit by the lava, you die. And so he'll crash down through to the lava, and then you have to get on top of him. And it's hard. It's really, really hard. Anyway, have Olmec die right where the door is hidden, and then you can stand on his head as he sinks in the lava below and access the door to the secret 5th and final world, Hell. There are even a whole bunch more secrets there, and even more than that in the vanilla content before. How awesome is all of that shit? How in the hell did anyone figure any of this out? I mean, there are clues, sure, and breadcrumbs, just like in Zelda and in Dark Souls, but this kind of weird indie nonsense is exactly the kind of madness that more modern and AAA games need. Imagine a Borderlands game with all that kind of crazy conspiracy tier insanity in it. Oh wait, it exists, and it's called Destiny. Shit. Well, let me write that down. Talk about Destiny. We'll have to talk about that later. Anyway, this return to form is the exact level of mystery that I'm talking about. The thing these out there indies, Zelda and Dark Souls all have in common is the classic foil to mystery: experimentation. You can't just know what walls to break, what heart containers lie behind what waterfalls, or how to get the secret ending in titles like this without asking questions, examining every little thing, and applying logic and tests to them. And a lot of the times you're rewarded for asking these kinds of questions. And if we take a step back, we can ask ourselves, why does this matter? Why is it important that mystery and the air it brings to video games remains? Maybe not in all games, but in some, at the very least. Games are different than their companion mediums, and aside from stating the obvious, there is a facet of exploration that you can do in a game that makes the reward of finding something tangible. No one ever saw an Easter egg in an episode of The Flash and felt like they owned it. Sure, Star Labs got a cool reference or something, but that was put out there for you to see and acknowledge as being cool, and that's it. Finding the Drake Sword in Dark Souls isn't only discovering a secret, but it has a reward, and that feeling that you had to try, fail, try again, and experiment to get that reward, well, it makes it all the more yours. Your experience may have been different or more challenging than someone else's. You own that, and you'll carry that, and you will remember that. Whether you looked at a map or followed a YouTube guide, you climbed that tower, you broke that barrier, you tore down that wall, you beat that boss. You did it. You found it. You beat it. Whatever you did, it's yours, and having that sense of experimentation meets result, it's a dynamic that games can use to evoke the same feeling of solving a mystery in real life. There are steps, processes, and rewards. It's tangible. It's yours. And that is awesome. That is video games. So, what do you think about obtuse games like Dark Souls? Do they work for you, or is the lack of direction too much? I think mystery makes games fun again, brings back that wonderment of finding something, and reminds me of trading game findings on the blacktop with my friends in grade school. Tell me what you think, either in the comments below, or by tweeting your thoughts at me with the hashtag AlexTalks. Now I'm just gonna stand here so you can embrace all of the links. I don't actually know which side they're on. I should probably figure video out, oh, I'm standing, never mind. I'm just gonna be quiet now. once again, thank you so much for watching. Go find some secrets, and bye, Felicia.
Hope you're ready for the next episode. Hey.